Welcome into another episode of Betting the Pitch. I'm your host, the real _ G Warner. It is Monday, February 20th, the year of our Lord 2023, and we have Champions League, Europa League, Europa Conference League all to discuss on today's episode. We're going to have an ultimate best bet, so we're going to select one from each of the leagues. The Conference League might not have one. We'll see how we're feeling once I get through all of it, because that is a bunch of teams that no one follows, or at least I don't follow. I'm sure teams or people in Sweden probably follow Dnipro or whatever. But going to go through a lot of scenarios. We got one leg of Champions League that's done so far. Europa League and Europa Conference League both did their first legs. They have a second leg coming up on Thursday. But we're going to go through it like always, try to come up with some winners. And I also have going to discuss some two advanced numbers, because I'd played a few, which went fairly well in the first legs, despite not having an advantage in each. But that will all come later in the show. As always, all lines quoted in this podcast are courtesy of betonline.ag, my favorite place to get my bets down early. Reduced juice is offered almost every game you want to bet right up until game time. Please follow the link found in this podcast description to fund your account and use the promo code GW50 to receive a 50% match bonus up to $1,000. Of course, if you're listening on YouTube, please hit subscribe. If you're on Twitter, smash the follow button, the real _ G Warner. Also, if you're on, Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, please leave a 5-star review. I will read anything that you put on there. Just get something in there, because I'm trying to drive up viewership, and I feel like that's one way to do it. Any questions you got? Anything you want me to break down? Maybe scenarios, two advanced numbers, things of that nature, futures you want to talk about hedging. I would love to really go through anything else beyond the normal protocols that we go through on this show. Happy to do whatever you feel like is worth it. So throw it in there and I will jump to it. Now, I guess without further ado, I don't have anything midweek besides the European competitions. I could be wrong on that one, because things pop up all the time. Feel free to slide us DMs if I'm missing something. But without further ado, I'll start with the Champions League on Tuesday, the 21st, so tomorrow. And we have Liverpool hosting Real Madrid. Currently, Liverpool a quarter goal favorite. Real Madrid is favored to advance here, but we'll get to the two advanced stuff after we discuss the match individually. Over-under is 2 3/4 in this one, juiced to the over. So Liverpool got a big win this weekend, played really well against Newcastle. We're fortunate to have a red card on the opposing keeper, but we're already up 2-0 off of two really good offensive plays. Do I necessarily believe that that's who they are and they're all of a sudden just going to crush teams that haven't given up goals in a long, long time? I don't. But that's a big step in the right direction. And maybe Cody Gakpo is kind of scored. I think he scored his first goal for Liverpool, so that's a big deal. And also Darwin Nunez getting on the score sheet is a really great thing. Real Madrid, on the other hand, they're didn't play Benzema at all this weekend. I imagine that was a rest thing. They went to Osasuna, a really tough place to play. Did get a 2-0 win, a second goal coming pretty late, but they count when they count. So Real Madrid didn't look great. They haven't looked great for years now. And they're defending Champions League winners. They have the trophy in their cabinet amongst all the other ones, including the Club World Cup, which I think zapped their legs and part of the reason why Benzema didn't play this weekend. There's been some movement on the Liverpool side of things. The juice has gotten a little bit easier on Real Madrid, I think, because there's some concern that Karim Benzema might not play. And without him, there is no offense to speak of at Real Madrid. I mean, Vinny Jr. is a shell of what he was last season. I assume that he's going to turn around at some point, but we're in the second half of the season now, and it's been a while. The World Cup probably didn't help. So we'll see. But Liverpool currently a quarter goal favorite. As anyone who listens to this podcast knows, I love underdogs in soccer, especially because a draw is a win. I think Real Madrid are the only way I can look here. I do like that quarter of a goal. At one point it was up to a half, but then it's been a very juiced quarter for the long time I've been tracking this, ever since the matchups were confirmed. I feel like Liverpool, they got Virgil van Dijk back this weekend, big for them in EPL play. I think they could have probably waited for this match to bring him back. We wanted to get him some seasoning. It seemed like everything went smoothly there. They kept a clean sheet against Newcastle, though, against 10 men. That was fairly easy, or at least easier than it should have been. And I think Newcastle's goal scoring has never been a strong suit of theirs. But pretty good statement to go into the Real Madrid game. There's a game at home at Anfield after coming off what I guess in England, it's not a huge country, but it's a fairly long trip considering from the top of the country at Newcastle to the middle or Midlands, I guess. Maybe it's not the Midlands because that's the tech. Anyway, I don't know England that well, so I'm just going to stop talking geography and stuff I don't know. But Liverpool, to me, they look like a side that looked great this weekend. I kind of don't believe that they can put two of those right back to back up against each other, especially against a team like Real Madrid. There's probably some motivation or some sort of anger from losing the Champions League final last year. Probably something that kind of is on the back burner, at the very least in the back of someone's head, certainly not in the frontal lobe. Another thing I don't know anything about, so I'll move on for biology or brain science. But I think Real Madrid, based on their ability in this competition to be an incredible team, and the last time we saw Real Madrid underdogs was probably against Barcelona in the Super Copa in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. I don't know necessarily that was certainly it was a bad day for Real Madrid. They got smashed, and things could have been better if Karim Benzema found the back of the net earlier in that matchup. But it's rare to see Real Madrid underdogs, so that's certainly the way I'm leaning. I feel like I like under 2 3/4 because I feel like I think the under was 4-0 in Champions League last week and looked pretty good in Europa League as well from what I saw. Besides, I guess, the Monaco match and I guess Manchester United. But Barcelona doesn't play defense, so expecting it under for any match they play, it's hard to really say. Yawns are back no matter if we're doing this at 6 p.m. or at 6 a.m., I guess. So I guess strongest lean for this one is Real Madrid getting a quarter of a goal. I have some interest in that under 2 3/4, though. Looks like it's juiced more to the over. It could climb to 3. That I think would be very interesting push price. But I'm not sure that I love that just yet. So I think my biggest interest for this one is Real Madrid getting a quarter, but I think you have to have Benzema in that lineup in order to play. Two advanced numbers. We have Liverpool and even money right now at even money. Real Madrid a minus 122 favorite. And that's come down a little bit. I don't want to make this too interactive that I have to check a bunch of things, but it was as high as looks like I had Liverpool minus 125 at one point, and then Real Madrid all up to minus 145. It's Liverpool's bad play, I think. I don't have dates on here, unfortunately, because there's so many different changes, but it's come back, and I guess Liverpool are an underdog, but depending on the status of Benzema, I feel like you might see that number tick. And I don't know that Liverpool have more money than Real Madrid, as weird as that sounds. I have real questions about Real Madrid in the midfield. Toni Kroos looks like he's out for this matchup. And I gotta say Camavinga and Tchouaméni have not looked really like they're mature enough to take over those roles that Modric and Kroos are gonna give up. Liverpool, on the other hand, have looked so bad for months. One good performance shouldn't change that. So I think I'd lean to that Real Madrid side. Getting a quarter in the first leg, though going to Anfield, a tough spot for them. Might be just one of those because it's essentially a home field advantage number right now. I think you got to be concerned about Karim Benzema, so it's probably a no play for me right now. Move next to Eintracht Frankfurt hosting Napoli. Currently, Eintracht a quarter goal underdog at home. Over under is 2 3/4, juiced to the under very heavily. Eintracht Frankfurt are one of the best teams in Germany, I think, this season. They are a real challenger for the Meisterschale to take out Bayern München and end that 10-year winning streak. But Napoli are the best team in Europe, I think. It's hard to really argue anything but, at least based on the performance they've had. They destroyed Liverpool. They won a group that they were expected to finish third in, are like light years ahead in Serie A. Which is a great thing. They can rest players and not have to really push everyone. Kvaratskhelia, the signing of the year. Victor Osimhen had been there the year before, could be the sign of the year from two seasons ago. Napoli have been great in player development and clearly in spotting players, letting their old guard move on. And everyone thought they'd be bad, including yours truly. And then Napoli just destroying everybody. The sad part is I like Eintracht Frankfurt and I want to back them as an underdog, but I don't really want to do it against Napoli, especially only getting a quarter of a goal. Eintracht are going to sit back and try to counterattack. I think that's exactly the way to play in Europe. That's why they won Europa League last year and got into this competition despite finishing in, I think, the bottom half of the Bundesliga, like 10th or so. But they gave a lot for winning the Europa League. They put all their stuff into that at a certain point. But that was also because they didn't have anything to fight for in the Bundesliga because they weren't finishing in a European position. Incredible story, and crowd should be pretty good, though I think the road crowd is a little bit more enticing to me for Eintracht Frankfurt, especially because on the road you don't have to give any sort of quarter of a goal for home court or home field advantage, home pitch advantage, home crowd advantage, whatever you want to call it. Napoli are awesome, but they also are going to be aggressive and try to win this match. Nothing has stopped them so far this season. Serie A seems pretty down, and so I wouldn't necessarily just guarantee that Napoli are going to roll over Eintracht Frankfurt. I actually feel like this could be a really good setup competition. I think this will be competitive throughout. And I gotta say, I like Eintracht Frankfurt getting that quarter of a goal right now. I'm not sure it's enough for me. And I feel like there's a good chance that you'll see Napoli money come in because they've been so good. This might hit half of a goal, and then you can escape the first leg with a draw. Probably Napoli's not too upset with that, not pushing crazily forward for goals late, and you win a full unit. So I'll be looking to see if this one hits a half of a goal. In regards to over-under, it's hard to play unders with Napoli because they can score so much. Kvaratskhelia is going to create a goal for Osimhen probably at some point. So I think you need to trust Eintracht to at least score a goal. I think they can do that. I mean, Randall Colomani is just the best striker. What an incredible free transfer. Poor Nantes, letting him go, and it's really affected them this season, I think, though they're hanging in there. But lean to Eintracht Frankfurt, and I feel like they have a shot to advance here. So when I pull up that number, Eintracht Frankfurt a plus 210 underdog to advance right now. Give a little bit of history here. It's climbed over the 2-1 mark. It was as low as 180 when I first saw it. Napoli were minus 240, now have jumped up to minus 265. Not incredible movement, and I think these numbers are probably not destined to move too much. Besides maybe flipping from plus to minus if there's a big injury concern, or we saw the play switch for Liverpool and Real Madrid, essentially. I think I lean to Eintracht getting that 210 just because I think there's a good chance that like more than 30% of the time they advance here. But I also don't know that's enough that I want to actually bet it. Unfortunately, I don't know if there's enough value there for me just yet. I imagine there'll be money coming in on Napoli for this weekend or for this week's match, and also on the 2 advanced number. So if you like Eintracht, I'd probably wait. If you like Napoli, you probably want to get in there sooner rather than later. Next, we'll move to Wednesday Champions League. Inter Milan hosting Porto. Currently, Inter a 3/4 goal favorite. Over under is 2.25. Juice to the over very heavily. So you might see 2.5 by the time this kicks off. Porto and the Portuguese Liga have been really strong in this competition and all these European competitions. I think they're looked at as a lower level, mid-level European league, but they have performed far better than that. I feel like they're a 6th top 5 European soccer leagues. They could be 5B, 5A. Could argue they might even be better than France. And Porto are going to go in there and play defensively, and they're going to make it hard on Inter Milan. Inter at home in San Siro play really well. They score a ton of goals. I haven't had a great track record of fading Inter, I got to say. A lot of poor performances by them, but a lot of times I'm not able to punish them. I feel like the teams they're playing haven't been able to punish them, and therefore I've gotten punished because Inter take their one chance, and I think they're destined to score a goal in every match. What that does here is if Inter go and score a goal, you need Porto to score to win your bet. You would get half of it back at this current plus 3/4 line, which does interest me a fair amount, but I think where I sit right now with Porto, I'm waiting to see if this one hits +1. It doesn't look like it based on the juice being pretty heavily skewed to the Porto side here. But I do like that 3/4 of a goal. I think Porto are a very live dog here. Before we get to the 2 advanced numbers, over under at 2.25, moving to 2.5. Inter can score a ton. Lautaro Martinez is probably the starter here. They didn't use him this weekend, but didn't really seem to matter against Udinese. It was not a very well played game, but of course they covered the spread, a big spread at that, winning 3-1. I think Inter are ripe for the picking all the time, but unfortunately, I do feel like that a lot, and I lose those bets, so it's hard to say. But I think Porto are a little bit undervalued because the market doesn't watch the Portuguese league. I don't even know how I would watch it. I don't think it's on anything here in the U.S., which is surprising because I get pretty much every other league besides Liga, but that's because they're like bankrupt. But anyway, lean to Porto in this first leg. I would love to get +1. I'll wait to see if it ends up popping. Even an expensive or juiced +1, I would like. I'm not sure that'll end up getting there. But for the 2 advanced number, Inter Milan a -180 favorite as we speak. It's only climbed, so it's gone from -170. I had it -160, now up to -180. Porto plus 145 to advance. Probably not a big enough number for me to take the upset, but Porto have had really good success, especially against Serie A sides. We remember they knocked out Juventus not too long ago. So that's the way that I lean for this one. And then Leipzig host Manchester City in the other final first leg of Champions League round of 16. Currently, Leipzig a 3/4 goal underdog at home with all the juice right now. Over under 2 3/4, juice to the over. So Leipzig, a much better team at home than they are away. They had a really good match this weekend against Wolfsburg. Their defense was great and silenced a Wolfsburg side that had been pretty good and racking up a ton of goals at some points this season. Now they get a big test against Manchester City, though. City with a disappointing draw, especially after Arsenal were looking like they were trailing at halftime, looked like they were in big trouble, and Manchester City could have built upon their Premier League lead. But then Arsenal came back. Man City surrendered an equalizer, or conceded an equalizer, and ended up not scoring again on the road at Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest basically looking like they just won a war at the final whistle, taking 1 point off of Man City. It was kind of hilarious, but pretty disappointing for Man City. And it kind of speaks to their offense has been so poor for a lot of this season. I feel like Erling Haaland just doesn't fit in their system. They need to redo it, add new players, come up with new strategies. The like crosses into the box, because he's not really a header guy. He's a sprint as fast as he can into space. And in the Bundesliga that was available to him, I don't think Leipzig are necessarily going to play in that sort of way. I think they're going to still defer and be a lot more defensive than I think you would normally want them to be. I think they've been practicing and looking like they've been more in a counterattacking style. I think potentially preparing for this matchup, but also just because I think they're so quick to jump on counterattacks. It's always really how they've been wanting to play. From the Ralph Rangnick, whatever that loser's style, or at least Manchester United loser, worked pretty well at Leipzig. It's built them to where they are now. The gegenpressing, the counter pressing has been important. And I think Man City are going to be naive like always, or just don't care and DGAF. Want to keep this a family show, but Man City are going to be up the pitch, playing a high line, and that's going to put them in big trouble against a potential counterattack from Timo Werner, who could then find a late arriving runner in the box. It's normally a Man City thing, but most of the time, everyone they play Man City, they play a low block because Man City are so good. They have so many wingers essentially and midfielders that all play defense basically. But I think they're going to have trouble here. And going on the road, it's not easy. They got to win by more than a goal to take your full unit. If they win by a single goal here, you get half of your money back, which is a pretty nice stance to be. I don't, based on the juice right now, I wonder if this one might fall back to a half of a goal. Wouldn't be shocking to me, but also I would expect Man City money to hit. It essentially has been 3/4 since I've been looking at it, but did drop to a half of a goal, getting odds, which would be unfortunate because if it did end and Leipzig did lose by a goal, then you would not get your half a unit back, unfortunately. So a little bit of a key number, not necessarily as key as the +1, but still something to think about. I lean to Leipzig. I think the home dogs, it's certainly something I've had a lot of success this year with home dogs, and I feel like I've forced myself into more plays on home dogs than letting myself look away from them. But I think they're a valuable side here. I think they have a good chance to maybe get a good result in the first leg and maybe fall away in the second. But Leipzig, I think they've been playing really well, and they can really cause some problems for a City side that doesn't really hasn't been playing well and can't really feel that great about themselves, I must say. As for the 2 advanced number, I'm not sure I'm that frisky with it right now, but currently Leipzig at 4.5 to 1. It's a pretty low chance. I mean, it's like 15% that they think they'd advance. Man City have not done great in this competition. I think they probably will get through here, but I think Leipzig are a live home dog. Wouldn't really say anything negative about anyone taking even an investment on the Leipzig to advance number here, because if they get a good result, a win or even a draw, that number falls pretty substantially, I think, for the second leg. So certainly lean that way. And I guess it's time for the Champions League portion of the ultimate best bet. And of course, we'll pick an ultimate best bet end of show. But I mean, there's a lot of home dogs here from the Bundesliga, and I think I'm going to take Leipzig getting 3/4 of a goal. I think that's the most interesting to me right now. I'm hoping this one will hit +1. I don't think it'll get there, but I'll keep an eye out for it. And now we'll move on to the Europa League. So Europa League had, let me get my numbers up so that I have the aggregate score line so far. So they did have the first legs last week. If you haven't watched them, I would suggest watching them before you get into this round or till Thursday, before Thursday starts, because I got to say, watching the matches is a big deal. You learn so much more from watching it than you do from reading box scores, especially in this sport where it's really hard to know what's going to happen. Eindhoven, I thought, started off really well against Sevilla and then basically fell apart. Sevilla with a 3-0 win in their first leg are in pretty good shape to move on. They're a team I've been betting against a lot this season, and it was guaranteed money. It was like an ATM at the beginning. It has not been that good since. And so now with a 3-0 aggregate lead, Sevilla look pretty strong to move on. If I go back and I pull up the two advanced numbers, I believe PSV was a favorite. They were minus 140, as low as minus 125 before kickoff. So some money back in Sevilla coming in, which I think makes sense for the host that was underdog to move on. That's a pretty big deal. And I think PSV is a quarter goal favorite right now with all the juice. Over unders 2.5, also juice the over. That's suggesting a bit of a comeback, but I don't know that you could see Eindhoven winning this matchup by 3 goals. The away goals don't matter, but they still have to go for it. And that makes me feel like over 2.5 is probably worth a look, I got to say. But Sevilla, they've turned around their season. They brought in some good players from various sides, including previous players for Sampaoli. He's brought a completely psychotic style on the sideline, touchline, but it's worked for the team. Hard to argue with that. They've certainly had an easier schedule and played a lot of bad teams that helped. But they've started to play a lot better, and it's hard for me to keep speaking about them negatively because I've been taking it on the chin lately. Current to advanced number is... we have PSV are 10-1 to move on. Sevilla minus 2,000. So $2,000 wins you 100. That's pretty expensive. I don't necessarily think a 10-1 bet is worth it, but I think this is still not guaranteed over. It just looks like it, because I don't know that Eindhoven, based on what they looked at, like I thought they looked like they controlled early, had a good start to the match, but things got really ugly, and I don't know that they necessarily come back from there. Next, we'll move to Michelin hosting Sporting Lisboa. Michelin, I believe they're Danish. I think might as well look that up. Sporting Lisboa, who had crashed out of the Champions League, and unfortunately they look like they have no clue at keeper. Yes, Michelin are from Denmark. Sporting Lisboa, they've had some incredibly bad mistakes, including when they had, I think it was against Marseille, they had a big lead and choked it up because their goalkeeper threw up on himself, got a red card, and their backup came in, had no idea, 18, 19 years old, and looked like he'd never seen a corner kick before. Well, Michelin were trailing, and Sporting Lisboa, so it was a 1-1 first leg. I'm not sure about the order of the goals, but anyway, the Sporting Lisboa keeper made a huge mistake, like cleared it right to a guy midfielder who just kicked the ball in the net. Wasn't as easy or simple as that sounds, but like that's twice this year that the same Sporting Lisboa goalkeeper, who I want to say was their captain, has made huge mistakes. Now Sporting Lisbon, a pretty disappointing first leg with a 1-1 setup here, and they're going on the road to the Danish side, and it's going to be a very different temperature for a Portuguese side in Lisboa. Not that it's warm there, but I think it'll be fair amount colder in Denmark. And the Sporting Lisboa are a favorite, half a goal favorite, all the juice right now, potentially climbing to an even bigger number than that. And I mean, I'm not in a rush to play here, but I got to say, Michelin, they've been competitive. They're a minnow that not anyone in the Europe gives any respect to. I mean, listening to English commentators, they're all from England, of course. They give no respect, but they also respect nothing besides the English teams, which is honestly, if I could bet against what they say, it would be a very easy game. But unfortunately, the marketplace is a little bit smarter than the English, or I guess British commentators. Anyway, back from that side note, over unders 2.5 in this one, juice to the under. I don't see a ton of goals here, and I think that fits the underdog at home underdog plan. I think Michelin can move through. As for the two advanced number, it was pretty, like, Sporting was 1-5, dropped all the way to basically cut in half. So now they're about 1 to 2.5, so minus 240 to move on. The Michelin side is now down from 3.5 to 1 to sub 2 at plus 190. I am very interested in the Michelin side. I'm not sure that I like them enough to advance, but certainly if I'm betting them, that is kind of the where I'm pointing, the direction I'm pointing to or toward. I really like Michelin and really don't like Lisboa on the road as a favorite. Next, we'll move to Nantes hosting Juventus. Currently, Nantes a 3/4 goal underdog at home with all the juice. Over unders 2.25, juice to the under. This is a pretty wild matchup. Juve took a lead 1-0. Nantes did a counterattack. Awesome play. Juve looked like they were going to score. Nantes went the other way. Beautiful counterattack, like exactly the way Comboire, their manager, planned this whole setup. Probably not to fall behind 1-0, but get an equalizer and then hold on for dear life. Weird non-penalty given despite a VAR review late, like literally at the death. I think it was like not given, and then the final whistles were blown. The three, I guess, in singular final whistle, but 3 whistles went, and I was like shocked because I was expecting that penalty to be given, and for my under 2.5 to get absolutely raped, but it fortunately did not. When you look at this matchup, Nantes in that first leg had multiple injuries. I mean, they've been very banged up and clearly not a side that's been able to handle 2 different competitions. They did have the World Cup break that helped them. Their offense has been very quiet, really missing Randall Colomwani, but they were foolish enough not to lock him up because financially they weren't sure if they would stay in the league. Considering 2 seasons ago, they were in the League on relegation playoff. Doesn't even happen this season, so they would be relegated automatically in that position and actually one spot in the table even worse. With that said, for this Juve matchup, Juventus with the 15-point deduction Serie A, they're taking their competitions, their cup competitions really seriously. If they win this one, they can get in the Champions League. It's kind of a backdoor entry. It would be a huge middle finger to Serie A and whatever board decided to give them a 15-point deduction. And I think Juve are going to really use their best lineups. Massimiliano Allegri, whatever his first name is. He seemed like he is taking this competition seriously, as well as the Coppa Italia. And so that's a big deal. And I think you'll see a very strong Juventus lineup, especially considering they rested Chiesa this weekend. Certainly a lot of matches had piled up, but when they're prioritizing, because he played and started against Nantes, there were rumors that he wouldn't, but he was in that starting lineup, ended up being the reason for the first goal with a great pass to Dusan Vlahovic, the former Forza Viola Fiorentina connection finally working, and I think that's going to be the future for Juve. But Juve here now go on the road as a favorite. They got to win this match to cover the spread. They win by 2 goals to take your full bet. So I'm very interested in Nantes. I think I like the under better just because I think it's just too hard to rely on Nantes to score goals. And I think with a 1-1 draw in the first leg, I think Allegri's even more likely to go up 1-0 and try to sit on it. I think he was fairly aggressive and got burned by it. And I think that might be, there might be a response to that, and that he ends up playing more behind the ball or kind of limiting the exposure to corner kicks that Nantes ended up scoring on if they take a lead. And I think that's great for an under 2.25. I also feel like if Nantes go ahead, they're going to have all hands to the pump trying to, I think the analogy is from like a ship that's sinking and they need to get all the water off of it before it does and they all die. I feel like you can see Nantes doing that. The problem is I don't know what the Nantes lineup's going to look like. They rotated heavily this weekend. I think that was always the plan, but I know the injuries to Palois and Castelletto were certainly not expected and things that happened. So we'll see what ended up happening with them. But I lean to under and I like Nantes. As for the 2 advanced number, we currently have Juve still a pretty big favorite if I could find it. Come on, where is this? They were minus 250 to move on, which it was not. They were 1-4 minus 400, so that's almost been cut in half. Nantes plus 195. I don't necessarily know that I fully trust Nantes. I need to see a lineup to make sure there's actually a capable spine in place, which would affect my interest in the underdog side and also the total going under. I need to. I don't know that I necessarily have to see Castelletto, Palois, a lot of Kirivella, a lot of their mainstay defenders in there. Some play midfield, some play center back, but I expect this to be a really competitive match and one that I really look forward to watching too, whether I bet it or not. Doesn't, of course, help for this podcast, but certainly lean that way. The next early match and the last one in that first window is Monaco hosting Bayer Leverkusen. Currently, Monaco a 1/4 goal favorite, over unders 2.75, juice to the under. Monaco with a great win. I mean, falling behind kind of against the run of play, taking a lead, equalize, and then scoring again. was awesome. They also got a man. They used all their substitutions, I believe, due to injury, and then the Peruvian, the South American, Chilean. Can't remember his name. Badi Sheila went to Chelsea, so Mazipan, something like that. That's marzipan is probably like a nut or something. Anyway, he left and was basically they moved him to center defensive midfielder and then really to striker because he couldn't move and he was just going to be a guy standing in the box. Incredible win for Monaco, huge step for them. I was going to play them to advance. I didn't do it. I didn't think plus. Yeah, I didn't think even money was enough. But anyway, first leg on the road, you never know what happens there. But currently Monaco, a quarter goal favorite. And this is all for Leverkusen to undo with a 1-goal deficit. I think it was 3-2 in the first leg. So it's a big deal here now. This is where Leverkusen, they've had a really tough season. The pace they have in the wing is incredible, but they don't really defend well. They make some big mistakes. Florian Wirtz has just not been the same ever since his ACL injury. Hopefully that changes. He's still super young, but and certainly with more gameplay, it'll help him. But Monaco can score goals, and at home they don't have a huge crowd advantage because I guess there's other things to do in Monaco. They go to a football match, but they're good and they can score. They've sold some players off, but they still have a ton of talent. I think that they are better than Leverkusen, and so only a quarter goal favorite with the juice on Leverkusen kind of speaks to the situation that Leverkusen need a win here. I really will admit, I hate these second legs where you bet a team and they're holding on for dear life to go to extra time. And that would happen if Monaco were losing in this matchup. I don't think they're going to lose this match, though. And I think Leverkusen only getting a quarter of a goal is kind of a slap in Monaco's face. I don't think they're going to hear about it or care about it. But ultimately, I just don't think it's the right price. I think over 2 3/4 looks more interesting to me because I don't think Monaco's ever really just going to sit back and defend. I do think second legs can play a little bit more closer to the vest. But this one feels too low to me, honestly. And I think I'm more interested in the over than anything in this one, just because I don't like favorites and don't really trust Leverkusen as an underdog. For the two advance here now, Leverkusen are a 3-1 underdog. That's coming from, they were minus 155 at the start, got all the way bet down to I think even money or even flip to a favorite. That's probably something I should have in my notes. Let me see if I can find that. But anyway, not great podcast or video work to watch me look things up on my computer. But I think it was, let me see if I can find this Monaco number because I'm interested now. So Leverkusen, yeah, they'd all on Bet Online, they dropped to minus 120 from minus 155. So that's quite a move. I need to update my little spreadsheet here to say that because I haven't. If anyone's got something that tracks odds movements in, they might be odd as well, but in odds movements in soccer, I would love if you could pass that along to me. I will definitely shout you out. Because unfortunately, I have to do it all myself, and it probably takes way more time than it should. But I think it's valuable to show kind of the movements here. I think Monaco will move through. So unfortunately, 3-1 Leverkusen. I don't think it's like a value situation. Next, we'll move to the afternoon window. And I got to say, Champions League gets all the clout because it's the biggest teams in the world. But these other competitions are awesome. I didn't have time to watch the Conference League yet, but I might because it's really cool. And they're really competitive, and those teams are great no matter if they're playing in England or in Latvia or whatever. Moving to the night window for the Europa League, we have Union Berlin hosting Ajax. Currently, Union a quarter goal favorite, a little bit more juice on the Ajax side. Over under is 2.25, just a little bit to the over. 0-0 in the first matchup. Union, who I'd bet to advance, and also in that first leg, had a 1-0 lead, chalked off due to a handball. I think it was the right call. Didn't love it, considering I want all the referee decisions to go my way all the time, especially because they go so badly against me. The Angers call this weekend was ridiculous. Also, more other ones that I just don't want to cry about. So we'll stay here. But 0-0, that changed a lot. Certainly, I'll get to the two advanced numbers in a second. But I think when you look at Union as a favorite, that's tough. They're not really a high budget club. I mean, Ajax are buying keepers off of La Liga teams. So like clearly they have money and ability to do things. Union do not, but they make great signings. They have a manager who incorporates everyone into a system and they play super well. They're really tight at the back. But the issue here for me, especially as I have them to advance, is that they're favored in this matchup, but I don't know where the goals are going to come from because they are pretty limited offensively. I mean, they did rest Geraldo Becker this weekend, which is huge. He's their biggest, really the paciest counterattacking specialist, who is always a threat and will, I think, put Ajax will go on the road and they're going to be too aggressive. They're going to push forward. They might win the possession battle, which I think is usually a key to covering the spread as a quarter goal underdog on the road, is if you are the more likely to win the possession battle. I think that limits the amount of chances for the favorite to score against you, which is big. But I think Ajax are not really the same team they have been. They sold off too many players. They have brought some back in, but I don't think it's been enough to restore what they have. They're on a second manager after Ten Hag left for Manchester United. They fired the first one, I think, after crashing out of Champions League. That was another nice bet by your boy, taking Napoli to advance instead of Ajax, when Ajax were the favored over Napoli, and then Napoli just blew away the whole group. But can't unfortunately celebrate that one because there's a lot more money to be made and bets to be won. I do think that Ajax as a quarter goal underdog is interesting to me because they likely win the possession battle. I think Union have shown on corner kicks, set pieces, counterattacks, they are great at scoring goals. But I think I lean to Ajax here, and I don't necessarily think that I'll play it, but also that does give me some a little bit of I'm not hedging is for gardeners ultimately, but I do think that there is a little bit of value here that if this goes to extra time, I'll win a bet on Ajax, and I still could get my two advance to come through. I think also under 2.25 is interesting because I think Union at home with that crowd, they're going to make it really hard on Ajax to do anything. If Union get ahead, that does complicate things with the under a little bit because they might get a second goal when Ajax are pushing to try to equalize because this is the second leg. But ultimately they might be so focused on just kicking the ball out of there that they might just be running the clock out. And so that's interesting too. Love when I like underdog and under. I think they point in the same direction. I've not had a ton of success this weekend with that type of strategy, but I think it fits here and it's something that interests me. As for the two advanced number, I had Union, I think at plus 135. They're now minus 145. So that flip has occurred, which is great. Love that. But ultimately, this is still completely up in the air. No away goals matter, which is good for Union now as the home field switches. I actually used to a pretty big crowd and big crowds across the Eredivisie. I think this is going to be a sight for sore eyes, or it might wake them up. It might be really intimidating for Ajax as well, because the Eisenen giving blood to build a new stadium is incredible. And that's going to be a jumping off point and a really tough place to play on Thursday. Next, we'll move to Manchester United and Barcelona, another match that I have a two advanced number here on Manchester United. I thought they deserved to win that match in Camp Nou. It did not happen. Unfortunately, the equalizer they allowed should have never happened, I think, because Barcelona should have been down to 10 men. Incredible to me that they didn't give a red card to Koundé, but he's available, and I can't cry over spilt milk because I did at least win a wager on that one. Now, Manchester United, a quarter goal favorite. A little bit surprising moving from a 3/4 goal underdog to now a favorite at home. Usually you flip the quarters for home field advantage, and that's a half. So that would make Manchester United most likely to be an underdog here. For that reason, I think there's some value in Barcelona getting a quarter of a goal, though I must admit, I don't bet Barcelona very often and usually don't feel good about them. Over under here is 2.5, juice to the over. I think you get that because of the 2-2 in the first matchup. Extra time goals or overtime goals do not count for the total. Keep everyone in mind with that. So you only get 90 minutes plus stoppage time to make your 3 goals here. And I do feel like that's low. I think that's not a great situation that I like Barcelona, the road underdog here and over, but I think that honestly plays into the hands of what Barcelona want to do. The issue for backing Barcelona, I think in general, is that they don't respect anyone. They play aggressively offensive. They want to score the whole time. Their defense is pretty poor. And Manchester United want to play on the counterattack. They didn't play great, started off really poorly against Leicester and still won 3-0. I think I might just ride my 2 advanced number here on Manchester United, though. Same sort of story where if this goes to extra time, I'll have won at least a portion of my money on the Barcelona bet and then can still get Manchester United to advance. I'm not necessarily worried about hedging it. I do feel like the part of the reason why I was so gung-ho about this and why I played Manchester United, I think in the plus 125 range, maybe that was the 135, something above plus money for both of these that are now in a much different situation. But it's because Barcelona play a way that Manchester United want them to play. And I don't think the Barca name is ever going to be undervalued in the marketplace. So that quarter of a goal seems like it's something maybe that Manchester United deserve. And this is a quick re-rating of these two teams if they played the first time, but I think Manchester United deserved a win and an advantage going into the second leg. We'll then now talk about the two advanced numbers. So Barcelona now an underdog at plus 110. It was as high as 1-2 minus 200 when I first tracked it. I did not get in at that price, unfortunately. But it's still a good sign, at least for my wager right now. Certainly not guaranteed, but to see Manchester United at home as a favorite, great stuff in that first leg. Next, we'll go Roma hosting Red Bull Salzburg. I believe that was a 1-0 victory for Salzburg. Not a great start for Roma, unfortunately for them, but 3/4 goal favorite with most of the juice right now on Roma. Over unders 2.25, juice to the over as well. Roma haven't really looked great for a while. Jose Mourinho has fixed the defense, but then the defense has been the knight in shining armor, I guess, for Roma, because they haven't been able to score goals. That's a big problem. Red Bull Salzburg, they play aggressively on the front foot the whole time. Kind of weird that Roma couldn't score against them. I do like their chances in the second leg at home, because Salzburg are not going to sit back and defend, but they're going to go with an advantage into a hostile territory, and Roma are going to have to push for goals, and that'll leave their now knight in shining armor defense a little bit exposed. I think I'm not really interested in Salzburg until I get a +1 here, which might happen. I mean, juice is pointing that direction, but I think it'll be a very juiced +1 at best if we get there. I'm not sure that I like that enough, because I think also if Roma take a lead, then Salzburg are not going to change their style. They're still going to try to score that next goal. And then, unfortunately, a 2-0 loss will lose my bet and will do nothing for them aggregate wise, and will only get worse because they'll even be pushing more and forward more. I think Salzburg are a good team. They've sold off a ton of players, so it's really hard to know how many 18-year-olds can go into the Italian capital and play really well. That's another concern. Over under 2.25 seems low to me. I think there's going to be goals in this one. So I guess if anything, I'll say Roma over, I guess I should say Salzburg, because that's the side I lean towards, but I'll go Salzburg over 2.25 as my best bet in that matchup. Next, and I guess two advanced numbers, Salzburg are minus 120 favorite right now. It was as low as, let me see. So Roma started as a 2-1 favorite, climbed from there actually to minus 220. And so not a lot of love or respect was coming in for for Salzburg at that point, but get a big win at home, and that's now you're a favorite. Minus 120 move through. Roma minus 105. Not a really great situation. 25 cents of juice there, but I guess that's life. I don't know. I think Salzburg is the way I lean, and that's who I'm rooting for, because I like chaos. Last but not least, in the Europa League, we have Stade Rennes hosting Shakhtar Donetsk. Currently, Rennes a 3/4 goal favorite with almost all the juice. Over under 2.75, juice to the under. Rennes have been a really bad road team, and maybe it's not surprising they lost 2-1 in the first meeting or first leg of this, though Shakhtar Donetsk playing in Poland, I think, forever away from Ukraine is tough. I mean, awesome for Shakhtar Donetsk. I didn't think that they would perform very well, because they sold Mihailo Mudryk to Chelsea, and he was the guy that made them go. Though they went ahead, took advantage of Rennes, who just have looked really disappointing for a while now. This is a big spot for Rennes. They care about money. Everyone does in France, and it's really important for them to put on some sort of show here and really get themselves to get through. They were a minus 240 as I mix the two advanced numbers in here, all the way down to minus 105 as Shakhtar Donetsk have moved from plus 190 to minus 120. That happens when you win the first leg. But when I look at this one, I think it's another situation where I'd love to get +1 fading Rennes, because they're still a pretty good home team. I believe in them, though they've not been the same side ever since Martin Terrier got hurt. They try to bring in the Cameroonian Karl Toko Ekambi from Lyon. I think that's a great signing. Will work out for him, but it hasn't worked out just yet. I think there are going to be goals in this matchup. Shakhtar want to sit on the counterattack and really hit you with their speed. That Mudrik's speed is unfortunately not there as he's in London now, and that does limit what I think their potency will be and might make it so Rennes take even more chances. Down a goal, they of course will, and that's their style anyway under Bruno Genesio, but I don't know that Shakhtar necessarily have the punch to cause any problems. I think, if anything, if Shakhtar moved to a full goal of insurance, I like that a lot better. But I think over 2.75 is my best bet for this one. Or I guess strongest interest in this one. And I think for this point, I've already talked about the 2 advanced numbers, so I might as well give my best bet for the Europa League. And I mean, there's a lot of opportunities here. I think I did really well in the Europa League last week. I feel like there's a lot of really good value in this competition. Certainly not exactly the premier one, a little bit off the beaten path, but you can find it on Paramount Plus here in the US, and I'm sure streaming networks across the world. I'm going to go Michelin getting half of a goal at home from Sporting Lisboa. I'm not a believer in Sporting, and I think the home crowd will get them at least to extra time, potentially even winning in regulation and sending the Portuguese back home. Quickly going to go through the UEFA Europa Conference League. It's tough. There's not a lot that I can add here because a lot of these teams I don't follow. Only so much time to watch soccer, literally my entire life. We have Cluj, who lost 1-0 in the first round to Lazio. They're at home. They're half a goal underdog. Romanian club. I'm not really sure that Lazio have proven too much that they're all of a sudden fixed. But they are a much better side. They have a lot more money. Hard for me to want to back a home dog here, even though that's something I love. Partizan hosting Sheriff Tiraspol, I believe. Moldovan side, I believe it was 1-2 in the first leg, or 1-0. Partizan, a road win against Sheriff. Now Partizan a half a goal favorite, the famous, one of the famous Serbian clubs. Don't want to offend any other supporters from other teams like Red Star Belgrade or something like that. Over-unders 2.25 in this one, juice to the under. I don't know a lot about that. I'll say Dnipro, then a 2.25 goal favorite to Larnaca. Larnaca with a 1-0 win at home. Good spot for Dnipro to get it back. Over-unders 2.25. Yeah, keep going. Anderlecht with I thought a surprise loss, but a deserved one. Market didn't believe in them. I think they're a slight underdog on the road at Ludogorets, and Ludogorets got a 1-0 win. Important. I think from when I look at this one now, I don't really have an interest, but Anderlecht half goal favorites shows that they're a little bit stronger than the Ludogorets, but ultimately they did not prove it in the first leg. Over-unders 2.5, juice the under. I feel like this is going to be a very under competition in this area because a lot of these matches were really tight in the first legs. Basel then hosts Trabzonspor. Basel a 1/4 goal favorite, over under 2.5. Who knows what's going on in the minds of a Turkish side right now with all the devastation. I mean, death toll over 40,000 is incredibly sad. I can't believe it. But Basel 1/4 goal favorite now. They lost the first leg 1-0. I don't know necessarily that I thought Basel have been really strong in this competition. They've been lined like they're a juggernaut, but unfortunately, they're 1/4 goal favorite right now, juiced all of it on Trabzonspor, the Turkish side. I think they were Turkish champions last season. So things not looking great for Basel at this point. Over-unders 2.5. Market doesn't seem to believe in them. So if you like Trabzonspor, that's probably the side to have. Lech Poznan then host Bodo Glimt. Currently Lech a 1/4 goal favorite. Over-unders 2.5. 0-0 in the first leg. Bodo Glimt have been impressive to me. I feel like that's the side I want. If anything, Fiorentina then a 3/4 goal favorite to Sporting Braga. Over-unders 2.5, juice to the over. I had the under in this first leg. Nothing was happening really. Fiorentina got 1 goal on, I think, a little bit of a defensive problem from Sporting Braga. Maybe a loss of focus. I'm not sure what exactly to call it, but it was not great. I'll put it that way. And then a red card really changed the match. Unfortunately, as goals change games, but red cards certainly do. And then it ended 4-0. Sporting Braga obviously have no chance. They have to go forward this whole time, score a ton of goals. I don't necessarily believe that they can do it. Makes it hard to back an under here because Sporting Braga have to push forward the whole time. And so I'll probably skip that one. And last but not least, Ghent hosts Karabag. 1-0 losers in the first leg. Ghent a 1/2 goal favorite here, over in 2.25. Karabag, I believe from Latvia. Pretty good run for them so far in this competition. I mean, just even being around is pretty impressive. Let's see, they are from Azerbaijani. They're from Azerbaijan, my bad. Yeah, I don't know that I have anything to add on what I want to play in that one, but we'll just say that right there. And now, I guess it's time to move into the best bet portion of the show. If you're listening on Twitter, appreciate it. Please hit the follow button, the real underscore G Warner. As always, trying to grow the following there. Please slide in the DMs if you got anything to say. Also, if you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, leave a 5-star review. It'd be great. Hit the subscribe button if you're on YouTube. I've been seeing a little bit more there on YouTube lately, and I appreciate that. So this is Betting the Pitch, episode number 170, coming in, trying to come up with some best bets from each of the competitions going on, the Champions League, Europa League, and UEFA Europa Conference League. For the best bet for Champions League, I took Red Bull Leipzig, a 3/4 goal underdog at home against Manchester City. From Europa League, I really like the Michelin getting half of a goal from Sporting Lisboa. And in the Europa Conference League, Bodo Glimt, a 1/4 goal underdog on the road after a 0-0 first leg. A lot can be said about Champions League. It's a little bit less understood, I think, because these teams haven't matched up just yet, whereas everyone in the other two leagues played on Thursday. For my ultimate best bet on this episode, number 170 of Betting the Pitch with the real underscore G Warner on Twitter, I'm going to use Michelin, a half a goal underdog at home against Sporting Lisboa. I think it's going to be a really tough setup situation for the Portuguese to go in there and get a win, and they're supposed to. So I don't think that'll happen. I think Michelin move on. They're half a goal underdog. Bet that one. And that'll do it for this episode of Betting the Pitch number 170. I thank everyone for tuning in, coming in, all that sort of stuff. You're the best. I appreciate the love. A lot more followers coming in on Twitter. Please keep doing that. Leave a 5-star review and I'll read it on the next podcast. Love you all. Hopefully we get some winners this week. And let's take it to the man, beat the books. Let's do all that sort of stuff. Thanks so much for coming. Talk to you all soon.